On July 1, 2026, the government rewrote higher education finance. This scatterplot mapping median debt against earnings shows the legacy cost-based model, where loans matched any tuition rate. Today, funding is strictly contingent upon verified postgraduate economic returns. The $1.7 trillion federal student loan apparatus is no longer an automatic guarantee for institutions. Every dollar must now be mathematically justified by actual alumni outcomes. To maintain federal capital, programs must pass an algorithmic mechanism designed to defund low ROI degrees. Ultimately, the federal government has effectively restructured the student loan apparatus into a tightly regulated commercial lending operation. The legislative origin of this overhaul is the Trump administration's Working Families Tax Cuts Act, frequently referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Over the past 12 months, the Department of Education has been executing the directives of that law, finalizing a strict set of new administrative regulations. The Stats and Earnings Accountability Rule, widely known as the Federal Earnings Test, functions as the central mechanism of this policy. For institutional researchers and financial aid directors across the country, the stakes are absolute. Failing this test means severing their students from Title IV funding entirely. The Stats Rule replaces arguments about the value of a degree with a logic gate verified by tax data. This animated flowchart illustrates the mechanism. Every Title IV program must pass specific baseline inputs. The bottom path's undergraduate threshold demands graduates earn more than a state's median high school wage. The top path's graduate threshold demands alumni out-earn a standard bachelor's degree. Universities cannot manipulate or self-report these numbers. The algorithm relies entirely on actual tax returns. Because it takes time to establish a career, these cohorts are evaluated several years post-graduation. This ensures the measurement reflects stabilized, real-world earnings. By directly linking university eligibility to IRS median wage data, the federal government has created an objective standard for academic market value. We map the defunding timeline on this 3-year grid. 1 year of depressed earnings triggers a failure, but the program remains active. Failing 2 out of 3 consecutive years loses direct loan eligibility. Failing 3 consecutive years revokes Title IV entirely, severing Pell Grants. This rolling mechanism absorbs short-term macroeconomic shocks, but it mathematically excises systemic, long-term underperformance from the federal budget. Preliminary audits on 50,000 programs reveal standard associate's and bachelor's degrees have a safe 2% failure rate. However, nearly 30% of undergraduate certificate programs fall below the earnings threshold. Zooming in shows cosmetology and allied health certificates driving this collapse. This has triggered pushback from religious and Bible colleges. They argue their programs naturally optimize for lower-paying ministry roles rather than maximizing economic yield. The administration has built in a temporary enforcement delay for programs that train workers who rely heavily on tipped income. This delay lets the administration integrate data from its No Tax on Tips initiatives, ensuring fields like culinary arts and hospitality are evaluated accurately. The Stats algorithm exposes a direct mismatch between the tuition these specific programs charge and the actual earnings their graduates declare to the IRS. The Earnings Accountability Rule operates in tandem with the total elimination of the Grad Plus loan program. New graduate borrowing is now restricted by hard federal caps, $20,500 annually for standard graduate degrees and $50,000 annually for designated professional tracks like law and medicine. This creates an immediate effect on high-cost institutions whose tuition requirements far exceed these new federal limits. Without unlimited federal capital to bridge the gap, these universities are scrambling to push incoming students toward private lenders. By capping federal loans, the government forces high-cost programs to rely on private capital markets. This subjects students to rigorous credit checks and removes federal income-driven repayment safety nets. The 2026 overhaul results in an automated culling of low ROI degrees across the nation. On this map, the Stats algorithm will power down thousands of non-compliant certificate programs. The operational mandate for universities is clear. Administrators must execute internal audits of their own alumni tax data immediately, creating a compliance feedback loop with the Treasury to identify vulnerable departments before the federal government does. Universities can no longer rely on federal loans to subsidize poorly performing programs. By linking Title IV funding to verified labor market outcomes, the federal government now regulates academic curriculum through direct economic compliance.